I'm a writer first, and I feel like if you're a writer, making an audio drama or fiction podcast is a wonderful opportunity for you to get your writing and your stories out there. I think some writers are deterred by the fact that you don't have a visual, so they can't think of how they're going to tell a story without using visuals. But you're a writer, you'll figure it out.
Tune in as we give flowers to Black men and women making waves in the audio industry. I'm your host, Sidney Evans, and this is Beyond the Threshold. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Beyond the Threshold. I'm your host, Sidney Evans, an award-winning audio editor and producer. For those of you who don't know, on this show, I interview Black men and women working in the audio industry to highlight the lessons and experiences it takes to achieve success in the field. And as always, we have another great episode in store. You all know, if you've listened by now, that I kind of like to just jump into things. But before I do, I always give a little context of how I came about getting the current episode's guests on the show. In the past, we've had people that I just kind of cold outreach to. We've had people who were recommended by other guests and kind of everything in the middle. But for this episode, it's kind of more along the lines of me doing my research and kind of just wanted to diversify the type of guests in the worlds that they come from. Today's guest was kind of me just going on an exploration to try to find a little bit more diversity in the type of people that we bring on. And upon discovering her and seeing what she does, it was a no-brainer for me, and she was more than willing after me reaching out to hop on. And I think this probably was the quickest was able to reach out to a guest and actually get them on the show. So I'm very appreciative. Of that. As far as the background on our guest, she is an independent audio creator who has written, self-produced, and directed 3 audio drama / scripted podcasts, which are Harlem Queen, The Courtship of Mona May in 1972. As a result of her work, she was selected as a community scholar at Columbia University. And in 2024, she was also selected for the Tribeca Festival and Air Media New Voices. She is also a member of the Lower Manhattan Cultural Council. She is also a LMCC grantee and made history as being the first audio drama writer and director at Penn State, amongst other things, which we will definitely get into. But without further ado, I'd like to welcome today's guest, Yhane Washington Smith. Welcome to the show, Yhane.
Thank you so much. That's a very nice introduction. Thank you. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you. Can you tell people where you are located now, currently?
Right now, I live in Harlem, New York. I'm from Jersey. It was always a dream of mine to live in Harlem. And so this is one of those dreams come true. I'm living in Harlem now for over 20 years.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess we gonna dive into what has taken place within those 20 years and even before that. So to kind of jump right in, can you just give us a little background on, give us a little bit on your background and what kind of led you down the path of creating things that you have created and the experiences that you have experienced?
Yes, thank you. Sure. This can get a little long-winded. I love talking about myself and my childhood and where I grew up. So I'm taking it way back. I grew up in South Jersey, which is different from North Jersey. It's like, in my book, it's a different state. So I grew up just outside of Atlantic City. And I've always, like probably most writers, I've always written, like as a child, and I've always aspired to become a writer. And so when I was little, I watched a lot of TV and films, and I did not know that people wrote those things until I became a teenager and Spike Lee's movie, She's Gotta Have It, came out. And I realized, oh, wait a minute. Not only do people write these things, but Black people write these things. So I immediately wanted to, make movies and TV, figure out how to do that. That was, years ago. So I did not know how to do that other than writing. And I went to university in Jersey. I went to Rutgers in North Jersey. And after I finished school, I wanted to go to film school, but I couldn't afford it. So I worked instead. I worked as all the alphabets, Alphabet City, a PA, an AD, a PC, an AP, all of the things. And that's how I kind of learned how to make films or video, whatever, but mostly meeting other people and just being in that world. And all the while I was making my own short films and submitting those to festivals and whatnot. Anyway, jump ahead to, like, this is all, I call it again BC, before children. I've since had 2 children, and BC, before children, I was submitting and writing and making stuff and using my little bit of money to make films and submit to film festivals. And then I had my family, and I was a stay-at-home mother, which I'm very glad I was able to do. That was another one of my dreams, to be able to stay home with my children. And then once they got old enough to make their own lunches and get themselves to school, they were like, all right, Mom, we're good. Go back to making your movies. Because all the while, I didn't realize this, but I used to talk to them a lot about filmmaking. And indeed, my son is actually, going to school for filmmaking, which is, another one of my dreams. So I'm so glad he's doing. Anyway, so I could not figure out how to make a film on my budget, which was 0. And I did not want to make a short film. Anyway, long story short, I went into audio dramas because I listened to audio dramas while I took my children to the playground. So while I was home with my kids in playground and the library and the museums and all of that, I was listening to podcasts and audio dramas. And so I realized that I could make an audio drama, which is a lot less than making a film. And I could do it. I knew how to do production, and I figured it would be more affordable and less stressful. But it's still very stressful to make an audio drama, but it is more affordable for me. So I used my savings. By then I was working at the school where my children went to school. I was one of those helicopter moms who just stayed at the school all day and volunteered until finally my principal said, you know what, we can hire you. So I was very grateful. So the money I saved, I used to make my first audio drama, which is titled Harlem Queen. And so that was a few years ago. And I was very happy to make it as an audio drama because it is a period piece. It takes place in the 1920s, which I feel like I could not do justice on film and without a budget. And so doing it as an audio drama I was able to build out the world through sound with music, sound effects, good writing, which is my strong point, the writing. And so it's been, ever since then, it's been great because I've earned back my initial investment. And so I made more audio dramas and I'm finally earning back. It takes a while, but I'm earning back those initial investments. And so I'm ready to keep making more.
Okay, so I got a couple questions come to mind in regards to that, but just to make it simple for you, I'll kind of do it one question at a time. But the first is, I guess let's just kind of talk about the content because this is a show for Black people. So what was like the inspiration for you to want to tell stories within that realm, within that world? And then later on, we'll get into like the logistics of actually doing the first audio drama and lessons you learned that you could carry forward with you for the others. But first question, like what made you want to focus on, I guess, like Black historical, that realm, that world, and provide that context?
Right. So I live in Harlem. It was always a dream of mine to live in Harlem, believe it or not, even when I was a kid. And so I used to ride my bike to work. I live in West Harlem. My school where I work is in East Harlem. So I used to ride across Manhattan in the morning, like the island of Manhattan, through Harlem, like past the Apollo, past Minton's Playhouse, past Marcus Garvey Park, and land in East Harlem. So while I was riding my bike, I used to, the brownstones are incredible. I think the buildings, the architecture, and I was like, wow, wouldn't it be nice to see these places back in the day? Like, the brownstones, the Apollo, the Mittens, all these clubs. And then I thought, that's what I want to make. I want to make Harlem Renaissance again. But I, like I said, I didn't think I could do it visually, but I felt comfortable doing it as an audio drama. And in fact, another thing that inspired me was that I used to watch this series called Boardwalk Empire, which is a TV series which took place in Atlantic City. That's why I used to watch it. And I wanted to make the Black version of Boardwalk Empire. And I was like, okay, what was going on with Black people in 1919? And the first thing that came up was the Red Summer of 1919. And I did not want to do that. It was just too harsh. So I brought it up a few years later to Elaine Locke's New Negro era, which was mid 1920s. And I was like, oh, boom, there we go. Harlem Renaissance. So it all kind of connected with what I wanted to do and where I'm living and I see. So that's how I was inspired to make Harlem Queen.
Okay, it's kind of it's this quote that I hear people reference a lot from Issa Rae, just like write what you know. And I guess like from your experience, the life that you were living, like you were kind of seeing it and feeling it. So it's like it's just a natural thing for you to do. Like for me, like I'm in the process of like concepting and writing like my first like narrative type podcast. Because generally the stuff that I have worked on in my career there has been like with other agencies and production companies. It's just like being an editor working in post production. But because of the state of the industry, I realized that I gotta create my own thing, and I have a lot of experience in a lot of these other areas, so I kind of want to be able to do everything and create my own opportunity. But I said all that to say, like I was an athlete growing up. I played basketball and baseball. Once I hit my super growth spurt, stuck solely to basketball, and that allowed me to play in college. But when I came up with the idea, was like I need to write something. I need to create a narrative story for myself. I was thinking about like what it should be, because I got to audio production because I love music, but I quickly realized like there's a level of skill you have to create music. But I had learned all these skills, so that's why I transitioned to podcasting. But I was like, okay, well, I don't know as much about music, and I'm like, what is it that I know? What is it that I could just talk about without even really thinking about it? And it was sports. So that was when I feel like it has to be sports related, because that's what I know more than anything. And then once I focused on that, that's when the concept of what topic, what event, what is the thing that I'm going to focus on, and it just kind of came to me. So writing what you know is always a good start, because you can be able to, it's true to who you are, and it allows you to tell a better story, which the better the storytelling is, the better. That's the foundation of it, a good story. And then you can figure out all the other things later. So I'm glad you shared that. You did your first show. So I'm sure that was a huge learning curve, as far as like the writing part was probably something that's a you can just, do that anywhere. You can go to a coffee shop, you can do it in a hotel, you can do it from home. I'm not saying it's easy. It's a lot. I'm sure it's a lot of drafts involved and revising, but you just put the pen to paper, or, type or whatever, and you got to fit, it's just solely on you. But once you start, okay, I got the story, I want to start building this thing out, specifically in a podcast format. Obviously you don't have the visual component, but I need some voice talent. I need some people to know how to do editing, production. Like, what was that process for you like?
So I'm a writer first, and I feel like if you're a writer, making an audio drama or fiction podcast is a wonderful opportunity for you to get your writing and your stories out there. That's my opinion. I think some writers are deterred by the fact that you don't have a visual. So they can't think of how they can't imagine yet how they're going to tell a story without using visuals. But you're a writer, you'll figure it out. For me, I say that because I'm in like 4 different writing groups. I did not go to school to study film or writing or anything. So I rely heavily on writing groups, on people to read my scripts and give me feedback. And so when I first wrote this script for Harlem Queen, I wrote it as a TV pilot because that was my dream. I was like, oh, I'll just enter some contest and get a fellowship at, this is a diversity program and pitch it to them. And that's how, but that never happened. So I wrote it as a TV pilot with sound effects. And I took it to writing group and they were like, yeah, no, what's going on in this story? Like, it was not good. It was not good. And I realized right then that you cannot cram a TV pilot into an audio drama format. It's its own different way of telling a story. You're only telling it for the ear, so you have to craft it for the ear. You're only hearing this. And I mean, that's an obvious thing, but I think for me, for that first draft, that was lost on me. I didn't realize that. So I had to completely rewrite the script. The audio drama is different than my TV pilot. For example, I had a choir in my TV pilot at the Abyssinian Baptist Church, which is a historical church here in Harlem on 135th Street. Or is it 136 or 138? Anyway, it's 130 something street. And I don't have a choir. I can't record a choir. I don't have people like that to make that, to record that and put that in the show. So I had to take that out. I made it a parade instead because I can find the audio assets of like a band playing much easier than a choir. So those were things. And another thing that they suggested in my writing group was the language. This is 1920s Harlem, so the language was different. And so I went in and looked up the language, like Googled, a dictionary from 1920s slang, as well as read old newspapers from the 1920s, like the Amsterdam News and whatnot, to pick up the language, which was very important. This is dialogue, so they have to speak accurately. And finally, to me, I did not want to skimp on sound design. Even though I'd never made an audio drama yet, I knew that the sound design was very important. And when I say sound design, I mean that the soundscape, the sound effects, not just the sound effects, but the ambience. That I think that's the word of the city in the morning, in the evening. What does that sound like? Traffic and sirens and footsteps and, in some scenes when the kids are playing outside, dogs barking, stickball, trucks going by, cobblestones, horses on cobblestones, which was still a thing in the mid 1920s. I live in Harlem and downstairs from me, I say downstairs, but the street beneath me, there's still cobblestones there, So, those are the things that I dug into: strong writing and not skimping on your sound design.
Okay, I'm glad you touched on that because I stand by this. I feel like in the storytelling world, like I honestly feel like audio is the most important thing. Like if you're gonna have, like, I mean, obviously if it's a book, obviously it's not relevant. But if you have, I guess some type of visual, especially, I guess I'm referencing more when you have a visual and an audio, because some people focus so much on the visual and they don't put enough emphasis on the audio. And obviously in the big Hollywood system, they understand the importance of it. But I feel like for people like us that are in the realm of like independently doing it, producing things, where you don't have like the budgets are tight. Like you got to find out the best way to allocate the money. And I feel like for example, you said you wrote it as a TV pilot, but let's just assume it was like a film, like it was an independent film. And, people spend so much on trying to find like the right, I want to spend this much of my budget on the camera. I want to spend this much on, and then it's like, you do all of that and then you just throw whatever's left to the audio and it doesn't translate because you're not in the world. You know what I'm saying? Like I really feel like you could make a short film if you have top-notch audio and you shoot it on your camera, it can still translate because the audio, your sense of hearing is strong. Like you can close your eyes and still feel like you're in the you're in the world. So I'm glad you like understand the importance on that. Obviously, when it's audio only, you're kind of forced into it. But I think that's something. Let's say you're talented, right? So let's say eventually your stuff does get adapted to TV or film or whatever. Like you'll be going into it knowing that, okay, the emphasis of the audio, and I feel like it will help tell that story when you add those other elements too.
No, I'm realizing now that when I watch TV and movies, I hear the audio so much more. Like footsteps do not sound that clear and loud and perfect, click, clap, clip, in the real world. It just doesn't. Like, I mean, but the footsteps, the door slamming, the dogs barking, that is all heightened through, your audio storytellers. And so, yeah, I'm much more aware of audio now.
Well, yeah, I'm glad because that's a key thing that I emphasized on the show. So I guess, okay, so you understand the importance of the audio. Obviously, you're kind of perfected and had other people help you perfect your writing, your scripts. So what was the process like when you were okay, like the script is, I got it down, like this is what I want to move forward with, as far as okay, I need people to voice these characters, and I don't know, like what, as far as the production or post-production, what if you had any experience where you were able to do it on your own, but what was it like trying to like get people around you to like contribute to it? And eventually we'll get into like the budgeting part of it, like how do you decide what you're going to spend your money on, or what was the process for you to get more money once you realized that you needed more money?
Right. So for casting the show, I did a few things. Number one, I asked friends, like in my writing group first, because a lot of people in my writing group are actors. So I went with who I knew. And other people, I asked for recommendations through people that I knew and people that I knew were filmmakers, if they could recommend people. And that's how I got a few people. Also, at the time, posting in Backstage, which is the paper that lists casting calls, was free. So I posted in Backstage and got some really terrific people. But most of it was people that recommended people. The young man, Ian Bell, who plays Dutch Schultz, is like perfect. He sounds just like Dutch Schultz. He's incredible. And he was a friend of a friend. So that's how I found my casting. And then there were some smaller parts, like a cop, an officer, a secretary, that I had my kids or my husband do for me to fill in. Yeah, that's how the casting took. A few weeks finding people to play these parts. And the role of Stephanie St. Clair, Madam Stephanie St. Clair, took actually was not the easiest thing, but I did find her pretty quickly. Stephanie Atkins. Oh, goodness, what am I saying? Gabrielle Atkins plays Stephanie St. Clair. And she was a recommendation of a friend who's a filmmaker. And I needed someone who could have a French accent and speak 1920 slang. And I think I needed her to speak French sometimes where she does not speak French. So, and she's been doing Stephanie St. Clair since the first episode. So I really got lucky with landing with her. And everyone I've worked with, I've been very fortunate because they show up on time, they've read the script in advance, they perform well, and yeah, I just got incredibly lucky with the group of people who, came in and helped me with this.
Okay. So, Cass, so what was so as far as like the recording, like were you kind of like spread out, like whatever studio you could get, or did you have like a setup, or, cause I know obviously you have to direct them. So you both had to be, together in order to make that happen. So, how did that look?
So the first two episodes we recorded, this was pre-COVID. So we recorded in a studio in Queens. And I just Googled recording studios in the area. And the most affordable one I found was one in Queens. And everyone showed up. I got everyone food and lunch and all of that stuff, lugging food there, and we recorded there. And I directed with my friend Sean, who was the head of the writing group that I was in at the time. That's how I learned how to direct, by working with him, because he was a director. And it took us like 6 hours to record 20 pages. It took a lot longer than I thought. I thought, oh, wow, it's 20 pages. It'll take 20 minutes, it'll just take a couple of hours. But it took us 6 hours to record about 25 pages. Now it takes me easily 4 hours to record like 15, 20 pages, because now I know what I'm doing. So our first recording was in a studio in person, and then COVID happened. And so I learned how to record remotely by using, I think we used Riverside. And that was not that much different. It was a lot cheaper, for one, because I didn't have to pay for a studio and I didn't have to pay for food or cabs. And but I did hire an audio engineer to help me with the audio setup, because that honestly is not my strong point. The technical stuff is not my strong point. Imani, our audio engineer, helped us with that. And that was wonderful because, yeah, we could, by then everyone knew their parts, they knew their characters, they knew the world. And we were able to knock it out in I would hold them for 6 hours, ask them to hold 6 hours, but we would easily get it done in 4.
Okay, that's cool. So being able to adapt, and I appreciate you just sharing when you're doing something for the first time, like you really don't have any idea like what you're in store for. Like something as simple as me doing this podcast is just like, I'm thinking like I have I'm technically savvy, but then I had to do all the logistics of organizing reaching out to people to get on the show and then get them on the calendar. I had to set up a calendar lead. So I had to set up all the questions that they have to answer when they book. So I know, so I can do the intro. Once I do, I was doing all this stuff and it was taking me like a long time. And I'm like, I got to create a checklist. I got to be more organized. Like I have to create a checklist for pre-interview. Then I have to have a checklist for the interview. Then I have to have one for production. Then I have to have one for post-production. Then I have to have one for scheduling. So I'm sure you learned all those things with your process too, because you can have all the assets and things with it, but if they're all over the place and it's taking a lot of, because you only have like a limited, and this is kind of, I don't know, this is kind of more meta, like a limited amount of like focus and brain power that you can put on something for periods of time. So if every time if you're doing something regularly, you have to have like a streamlined process, because you don't want to waste that mental energy doing something that you knew that you had to do anyway, that you could have planned for and organized. You want to save that for stuff that's unexpected. The stuff that you are expecting, you want to make that as easy as possible. So, So I would assume like the organization part of it was a learning curve that when you once you went into your other productions, you were like, okay, I can't waste this much time moving forward because I know I'm going to have to spend more, leave, and you want to leave wiggle room. You don't want to be on tight, like cutting corners and things like that. So was that the case for you?
Yeah, I'm big on learning by doing. I mean, that's the only way. If someone had told me how to do this, I would have been like, great, great, thank you, thank you. And I would have taken notes. But doing it is a whole other ballgame. It's definitely sinking in more. Like, for example, I love to brag about my recording schedule. The first time we just showed up at the studio and started recording, but now I break down the script scene by scene. And I give us, okay, this will take us 15 minutes. This will take us 45 minutes. I want to allow 35 minutes for this. And we always come in faster, earlier, quicker. And I think part of it is because the actors they know me and they know their characters by now.
That's a big thing. Making sure they're prepared as well. And then obviously when you're booking time, like, as the longer it takes, the more money it costs. So you have to learn how to be efficient, definitely.
Yes. Yeah. Those first days of recording, first 2 times of recording in the studio, I went over budget. I was like, dang. But I had to, and I paid the actors, quote unquote, extra, and had to pay the studio extra. And I was like, okay, I need to figure out how to streamline this. So yeah, learning by doing.
I'm a big proponent of that too. So you kind of led us into a perfect segue talking about over budget. So obviously you said when you first went into this, like you had you saved money and to be able to do it. But and that was a reference to the first one, but I don't know what the process were like for the other two. But how has there been a situation where you were like, okay, I have this amount, but if I had this, like I could really do this? Because sometimes like being on both sides, like when you're working in the industry and you're doing work, like let's say for example for me, like somebody pays me to like do editing or mixing for an episode or something like that, or for a series. It's like, okay, this is my rate. This is like I'm not going below this. It's really not worth my time and the time that I learned to learn this skill to do it for less than this. And then now I'm getting into the room where I'm creating things and you have a budget and I'm seeing what it's like on the other side. And you kind of have this balance of like, I want to be able to get this done, but I know what it's like to be on the other side. So I don't want to lowball people. I want to pay people what they're worth for their skill. So have you had a situation where you're like, okay, this is what I have, but I know this is not enough. Like in order to pay people equitably and to, kind of just pay it forward, do things the right way.
Yeah.
Just
Yes,
to make a long story
absolutely.
short, where you had to like, okay, I need more money. And what was your process for gaining that money?
So, like I said, I used my money first because I would apply to fellowships and grants and whatnot, and no one was giving me any money. Fine, whatever. Fortunately, I had a good job and I saved my money. And I'm big on investing in myself, right? Like that's what we have to do. Sidebar, I later learned that my second grandfather, great great grandfather, self-manumitted. I did not know this at the time. Like, you know what that means to self-manumit? Like you buy yourself. You are a slave and you work quote unquote extra to earn money to buy yourself. So that's what I learned that recently. So I feel like I'm echoing what he did. I'm investing in myself. So I'm going to give you the breakdown. I had $5,000 and I insist on paying people. Like I insist on at least offering people something for their time because, traveling out to Queens, printing out the script, learning your line. I mean, you had to read it, but the research that goes into this, because this is 1920s, people may not know who Marcus Garvey is or Charles Johnson or Zora Neale Hurston. So the research, and I offered everyone something that I could afford and something that if I were doing it, I would feel comfortable accepting. Of course, people are worth more I wish I could pay them more, but this is what I had, and this is what I felt comfortable, like being equitable. And like I said, my standard was like, okay, would I do this for this amount of money? So I was able to pay everyone the studio plus the extra that I went over. And I earned that back through grants. I was very fortunate to get a grant from LMCC, and my Patreon and donations, contributions was a big help. And like I said, Penn State used my first script for their theater department, their not throat, their vocal department, their voice actors. So that was quote unquote just plain old lucky.
Oh, so they use it as like a teaching tool, basically.
Yes, they used it for their students in the acting department. They're Black students, fortunately, and it was during COVID, so they could not do live shows, so they did an audio drama, and so they used my script and I directed, and they were awesome, awesome sauce. I went back and hired a couple more, tried to hire a couple more, even more, and that worked out very. So all of those things, and the revenue came in, like the various revenue streams is how I was able to earn back my initial investment plus some. And so with that, I made two more audio dramas. I made 1972 and The Courtship of Mona May. And then slowly but surely, through more grants, thank goodness, and ad sales and the Patreon and donations, I was able to earn that money back. And then I did a live show of Harlem Queen, which starred Gabrielle Atkins and Tony Award winner Carrie Young. She was not a Tony Award winner when she worked on this with us, and used the grant money for that. And so the grants for me was a huge way of me recuperating my money. And the donations, of course, the Patreon. I think I make each episode fairly cheaply, but like I said, it took me 5,000 to make those first two episodes. If I had my druthers, I would love like 2,500 per episode. And, that would be the ideal, which is probably why I have not done 8 episodes yet. I've done 4.
Okay, so before we move, trying to jump ahead a little bit, I want to go back because I know we talked about like the pre-production, the writing, and then we talked about casting and things like that. But because I'm such a big component and I've worked so long in like post-production, like how did you go about finding like the people to edit and like sound design and mix it? Like what you don't have to go super deep level, but I do want to touch on it because maybe some people listening were like, well, we got to talk about the writing and the like the acting, like can you touch a little bit on like what the post-production process was like?
Yeah, so the first sound designer I had was recommended by someone I knew who did podcasts, and he was great. But the person I worked with since then on all of my shows also makes podcasts and audio drama. So I reached out to her because I liked what she did in her audio drama, Experience J. And I was like, so wait a minute, you do sound design? She was like, yeah. So I asked her to do it for me. That's by listening to other people's stuff. That's how I found people. I reached, and Imani, our audio engineer, she does a podcast. So I reached out to her, and what else? Oh, an editor finally, because I hate editing, like hate with a hard H and a T. I hate it. So, and I was able to find Jordan, who does editing through, I think, maybe through LinkedIn, or I might have posted on Facebook. I don't remember. But usually I ask people to recommend someone, or I listen to their show and I ask them that way. So if you have work out there, that's great advertisement.
Okay, cool. Yeah, thank you for touching on that. So I guess the last thing, like last two things I want to touch on before we get, well, last thing before the ending segment, is just as far as, like, I know you mentioned the Patreon and getting grants and getting funding, but it's like, far as marketing it, I obviously, like, I guess Patreon is a tool for that, but like, what did you do originally, and what have you learned to be like the best practices for like the other shows moving forward as far as marketing?
I'm still learning. Like what you were saying, how you learn by doing, and you're realizing, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that. I'm realizing that myself because I thought, okay, I made the show. I just need to put it up and just people will find it. I don't need to do anything because I'm tired. But I realized, like, as an indie creator, you have to do all the things. You just do. That's not what I wanted to do, but I want people to hear it. And so I realized, okay, I have to put some time and energy and even money into this. So I'm figuring out marketing myself. I do ad swaps, or show swaps, feed drops. That's what I'm learning is a big help. I try to get on all of the lists, like every newsletter that has lists, every platform that has lists. I want to be on those lists, and those lists really do help because they help with discoverability. I was on a couple of lists the first year, and that was great. And this February, actually, I'm on Apple's Black History Month shout out. So I'm very excited about that. I think we're the only audio drama on there. So that to me is big. And doing the live show was a big step in not only marketing, but community building. And, that actually writing a live show is even different than writing an audio drama. So that I learned that. What else? Publicity. And I have all of the little knickknacks, the handouts, the stickers, the pins, the everything. And just being in the community, like Afros in Audio, gave me a shout out, which was wonderful. BPA, the Black Podcasting Association, being there, woke women of color podcasters, just being in all the places so that people will find me. That's a lot of work. And I realized, but that's what you have to do.
Right. I'm glad you said that, because I was just having a conversation that, because I always like to, when I have my guests on, when they make certain points, I always like to kind of relate it to myself, because I don't know whether the way you tell it or the way I tell it, whoever's listening, one might resonate more than the other. Because obviously we have some overlap. We're both in the podcast industry, but we have different experiences. But at the end of the day, like the biggest thing that I've gathered from this is it's a lot of work. It's a lot that goes into it. And I know from doing this podcast that there's a lot of work and there's a lot that goes into it. And when I first started, like when I did my first couple episodes, and I was like, man, that was a lot of work for like 2 or 3 episodes. And I hadn't streamlined my process. I was still figuring out what was the most efficient way to do it, as I referenced. And then you kind of get that thought in your mind. It was just like, this is a lot of work. Like, do I want to continue to do this? And when you like have a passion for something, and it's something you think about constantly, like you can't let it go. It just stays with you. Like, you have to see it through. And I asked myself a question. It was like, so I did it. I saw the amount of work it took. And now I'm having this thought, do I really want to do this? So the thing that would stop me from doing this is just that I don't want to put in the work. And I don't think I'll be able to live with myself if I was like, I didn't see through what, because sometimes when you kind of get locked into your purpose, or is revealed to you, it's like a divine thing. So like, this thing that was sitting here to do, it's not the only thing, but it's one of the things. And I don't want to see it through because I don't want to do the work. Like, obviously you're like, okay, I'll do whatever I have to do, put in the hours to make it happen. And I'm in the same boat. So I'm glad that you saw like, okay, this is part of my purpose. Like this is one of the things that I'm meant to do. So you're willing to make all the sacrifices. I just want people to understand that, especially when you're independently producing things, and the way kind of things are shifting, especially in this industry, is like where you can't just, oh, I have an idea, I'm gonna pitch it, and then somebody's just gonna throw some money at. No, you have to have some proof. Like you might have to make 5 before anybody comes to you like, when we want to give you some money. For some people it might take 1 or 2. For some people it might take 10. You don't really know those things, but the only thing you can do is control what you can control, and that's the time you put in. So I appreciate you doing that and seeing it through, because it has inspired me, because I'm on that route, and I'm sure it'll inspire other people too. So yeah, I really do appreciate everything you have put into this. But I just wanted to say that before we kind of transition into the last segment of the show. Just some general questions surround in the audio realm, to get a kind of idea of your taste. So the first question I have is, what is your favorite album of all time?
Oh, okay. Thank you. I wrote that down. Stevie Wonder, Songs in the Key of Life.
How old were you, or do you remember the first time you heard it, or the circumstances surrounding the first time you heard it?
I don't remember. Okay, I was born in 1969, so I'm presently 55 years old, thank God. And my older brother had a record player. Like, I did not have a record player, but he always had a stereo, and he was the person who bought records. Because back in the day, growing up in the 70s and 80s, you only listened to radio or records. That was it. Like nowadays, Spotify, like, looking up lyrics and anyway. So I would have, like, that didn't exist. So I remember being a child listening to this record, but nowadays, as an adult, I realized what it was. I'm like, oh, that was Stevie Wonder in the name of the album. I didn't know that then because I was a child. Like I would see the album, but I never made the connection like this song was on this album. But thank goodness for Spotify. I was able to learn like, oh, this song was on this album. Intervisions, these songs were on that album. Talking Book. I learned, like, that's how I learned what these things are. And I can tell you, otherwise, if I didn't have Spotify, I would have just said the song 8 times 8 is 84. Whatever,
Right, sometimes that's when you're trying to discover the song, you just got to type in like a line or two, and hopefully Google does this thing and you'll figure it out. But that's the great thing about music. Like, it exists forever. So you can always go back and revisit it and figure it out and appreciate it in a different way, or learn something new that you didn't know before. So that's cool. Okay. Favorite music producer?
So I didn't know what is a music producer?
So like the people, generally who like create the music. I mean, it's a broad term. Now, sometimes the people who just like make the track could be the producer. Sometimes the producer, for like example, like Quincy Jones, like, because Thriller is the most successful album ever. Like obviously they had like a lot of musicians and other people like actually play the instruments and, play or do the elements. But I guess, yeah, the person who generally just like gives like the musical direction.
Oh, okay. So you already said my person, Quincy Jones.
I had a feeling that's why I went ahead and said it.
Yeah. Yes. You're a mind reader. because I just saw his documentary on Netflix, I think. And it just so happens that, okay, the album that Count Basie did with Frank Sinatra is like one of my favorite albums. And he, I believe, arranged that or produced that. So yeah, Quincy Jones.
Okay, yeah, that's and rest in peace to Quincy Jones, man. He just passed recently, as I'm sure you all know. Okay, favorite film score or soundtrack?
Okay. That is another Quincy Jones thing, The Wiz.
The Wiz. Oh, I thought you were gonna say
Yeah.
Sanford and Son. Well, that's for the next one. That's next question. Next question. Don't. But you can't say that one because the next one is a TV question, so you have to pick another one. But The Wiz. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. You're keeping things consistent here. Okay. So favorite TV theme song.
So initially I wrote down The Facts of Life.
New one. That's a new one.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think then I had another idea, but I forgot what it was. But yeah, I'm going to stick with The Facts of Life.
That's very, very catchy, very, very jingly. And I forgot about that one, but I used to watch a lot of Nick at Night as a kid, and I was able to watch the shows that were out before I was even born. So I know exactly what you're talking about. We had another guest on here who said the Taxi theme song, which actually has no lyrics. It's just music. But I went back and listened to it, and I understood where he was coming from, the perspective. So,
Oh my goodness. So I didn't have Nick at Night because I was too old for that. So I'm impressed that when people say Nick at Night, I'm like, oh, okay. That's because you were born in 1990.
89, but you're close.
Okay. Yeah. Like we had the real shows that came on, like the original Taxi came on like NBC, 8 o'clock, 8, whatever. But that theme song, the taxi going over the bridge is why I wanted to move to New York.
I guess, and at that time, like that was like that shot or those shots is like it kind of like encapsulates all that like New York was or is at that time. So that definitely makes sense. Well, yeah, I appreciate you. Like I said, coming on and sharing your experiences and even getting as deep as telling us what your budget was for the first. So I appreciate the transparency on that, and I took a lot out of it. I took a lot out of it, and I hope our listeners did as well. Can you just share before we wrap up, like how people connect with you, listen to your stuff, and support what you got going on?
Yes, thank you. So you can listen to Harlem Queen 1972 and The Courtship of Mona May on Apple and Spotify. And I always say wherever you get your podcasts. I am trying to wean myself off of the socials, but so I have a newsletter on Substack, harlemqueen.substack, I believe. I'm on Substack, Harlem Queen, but I'm also still, I am still on Instagram, and my Instagram is Yhane, YHANE.writes, WRITES.audio, AUDIO. So you can reach me there. And I'm on LinkedIn as Yhane Washington Smith.
Yes, LinkedIn is the great connector. I've strayed away from like the other socials, but LinkedIn has definitely been a staple. It's like the progression of this podcast. So I just find people and reach out to them, and they're more responsive because if I'm reaching to them out there, I'm serious about something. I'm not just, so yeah, appreciate you sharing that.
Of course.
And once again, just thank you for coming on. I appreciate you taking the time out of your,
of course.
And this is I guess it's a national holiday, so you could have been, out and about catching the ambiance of whatever's going on in New York right now. But I appreciate you taking the time out. And for everybody listening, I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we will catch you on the next one. Thank you for joining us on today's episode. Please don't forget to subscribe to the show and leave us a review. If you'd like to work with me or connect, please go to soundbysid.com and schedule a call. There you can also check out the full list of productions I've worked on. If you'd like to connect on social media, my handle is soundbysid.com on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm Sidney Evans on LinkedIn. Don't forget to follow Beyond the Threshold on Instagram as well. I'll catch you on the next episode.